You've invested enormous amount of time, money, and energy into building your brand, obtaining a trademark, running all those ads. Then, out of nowhere, you've got a dozen hijackers on your Amazon listing, undercutting your price, ruining your brand reputation, and making your products look cheap. What do? That's what we're going to be discussing in the next 10 minutes, how to remove those unauthorized resellers. Let's get into it. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mario Simonian, and I'm the founding attorney here at ESQgo. And for the past 7 years, my team and I have been helping out 7- and 8-figure Amazon sellers and brands protect themselves from the evil empire and infringers. All that to say, there really isn't much I haven't seen. But now let's talk about how to remove unauthorized sellers without getting into trouble with Amazon. So let's talk about the different types of unauthorized sellers. And a lot of people tend to put them all in one bucket and just call them unauthorized sellers. But there's really 3 types. First one, we've got your genuine resellers. This is anyone that purchases your product from a genuine source, from a reputable source, then decides to sell it for whatever reason. Those are going to be your genuine resellers. Second, we've got counterfeiters. This is anyone that is producing a fake version of your product, or maybe is selling a expired copy or version of your product, or maybe has somehow manipulated the packaging or the product itself. That's going to be counterfeiters. Next, we've got your gray market resellers. So this is gray market goods. This is products that maybe they obtained from a liquidation event, or maybe it's a product that you intended to sell in Germany, but now has ended up here in the United States. Those are the 3 different buckets. I can tell you, Amazon doesn't care much about the genuine resellers, and neither should you unless there's other underlying issues. But the other 2, you've got options for those, and that's what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about the First Sale Doctrine. This is a rule, a law that you should know about if you're serious about fighting back against unauthorized resellers. So the First Sale Doctrine says that anytime you purchase a product, as long as it's a genuine product, you could go ahead and resell it. The brand owner's rights extinguish at the time of sale. That's what the First Sale Doctrine is. And in our experience, anytime we approach these unauthorized sellers or counterfeiters or gray market good sellers, the first issue that they'll bring up is, I've got the First Sale Doctrine behind me, protecting me, right? And that's a very good argument. That's a very fair argument. So that's the First Sale Doctrine. Now, there is an exception to the First Sale Doctrine. Just like most rules and laws we have here in the United States, there's usually an exception, and sometimes even an exception to the exception. But the exception to the First Sale Doctrine is a material difference, which says if you're selling a genuine product, it has to be the same. It can't be materially different from what the brand or the manufacturer intended that product to be. So what are some material differences that the courts have recognized? One would be if it's an inferior battery or some sort of component. For example, if I'm selling an iPhone and it's got an inferior battery somehow, then that would be considered a material difference. Or if I bring my product and it actually has German packaging on it, but I'm selling it here in the United States, so foreign language, that could also be considered a material difference. Another material difference could be if my company, the brand owner itself, the manufacturer, offers pre-sale or post-sale support, but the reseller doesn't, that could also be considered a material difference. There's a list of about a dozen or so material differences that we look at, that we review anytime we're doing this, but those are just some of the more common ones out there. Now, with respect to materially difference, that's going to be an exception to the First Sale Doctrine, so just keep that in mind, okay? So if you could go ahead and prove the material difference, then not only do you overcome the First Sale Doctrine, but that could also be now considered a trademark infringement, so IP infringement. So now that's where we want to be if we're the brand or we're the ones protecting the brand. Now, let's talk about the strategy that we use anytime we're looking at serious brand owners that are looking to protect their brand and products on Amazon, or the ones that have serious issues with unauthorized sellers. My first thing is all the work, or most of the work, I should say, has to be done behind the scenes before we even approach any unauthorized reseller. So the first thing we want to do is build out our framework for our quality control. What are we doing with respect to some sort of warranty policy, or maybe some return/support procedures that could be pre-sale support or post-sale support? Do we even have a policy for authorized resellers? And we want to make sure all of that we build out, our quality control framework, is available somewhere online. It could even be on your own website, which we usually suggest. That's the first thing. Second thing, we want to make sure that the trademarks that you should own or you should have are already registered. So we may take a look at your products and your procedures and then realize that, you know what, we may want to add or register for this trademark and that trademark. So that's step number 2, is ensuring that you've got your trademarks that you need registered, or at least we apply for it, and then enrolling that in Amazon Brand Registry. Next, step number 3, we're going to go ahead and start collecting data now. So identify who these unauthorized resellers are, who these violators are, and we're going to document everything. We have to know the enemy before we even approach him, okay? So what does that look like? Anytime they're on your listing, go ahead and take a screenshot of it and get that saved. Anytime they're undercutting your price, go ahead and take a screenshot and then keep that in a folder. Also document who they are. So what's their store name? What's their business name? What's their business address? All that is public information on Amazon. Next, always grab their merchant ID. Amazon sellers can change their store name, but their merchant ID, they can't change. Think of that as their social security number. So again, step 3, we're going to go ahead and start collecting information about them. Step 4, we're going to go ahead and have either you guys or hire a law firm, send out a cease and desist letter. I don't mind the first cease and desist letter or some sort of notice going out from the brand if they've got the process and the people in place, but otherwise a law firm like ours can do the same thing. So get that cease and desist out, put them on notice. In my experience, if an unauthorized reseller is here in the United States, then they do take the cease and desist letters more seriously. But if they're outside the United States, I don't see that being very effective. If that first cease and desist letter from the brand or even from a law firm, if that's ineffective, then that's when you hire a law firm that's more specialized in Amazon and IP. And what we would do is we'll go ahead and take a look at your material difference and then send a cease and desist letter from our own law firm, so on our letterhead. People usually tend to be more attentive and more cooperating when they have a letter from a law firm. So a cease and desist that's citing material difference and how they may be infringing on your trademark, on your IP, usually is effective. In our experience, about 80% of the resellers or unauthorized resellers tend to jump off a listing and just stop selling a listing once they receive a letter from our law firm. And you just want to make it as difficult as possible for that unauthorized reseller. Get them to the point where they think it's better for me to go jump on someone else's listing and deteriorate their brand rather than deal with these people. That's where you want to get them to. So as I mentioned, about 80% of the resellers will stop selling after they receive a cease and desist letter from our firm. Now, what about the remaining 20%? So about 15% of that remaining 20%, they'll need some additional pressure from us, whether that's an additional cease and desist letter or maybe something else. The remaining 5% are usually the ones that are a lot more stubborn. And I completely understand their position too, because they've probably invested a lot of financial resources into obtaining goods. And those are usually the resellers that have hundreds, if not thousands, of units of inventory. So their position is, I'd rather sell through all this than just ignore these people. So that's what they'll do. They'll go ahead and sell through it, or that's what their intention is. Now, for those, what we would do is we'll go ahead and escalate. And that's what step 5 is. So escalation channels can include attorneys at Amazon that will pay attention to it, especially if we could show how they may be harming Amazon customers or Amazon's interests themselves. Or if that's not going to work, we may want to take a look at other federal regulations or state regulations that this unauthorized reseller may be violating. And if there's an angle there, maybe that's something we could go ahead and explore further. A prime example of looking at federal or state regulations outside of IP to enforce against violating unauthorized resellers is something we did with a large client a few months ago. They came to us and they had tried sending cease and desist letters, tried hiring a big law firm, but nothing was working. And the angle that we took was their product that the reseller was offering was actually violating Prop 65, which is a regulation or a law here in the state of California. And that's the angle that we took. And we placed a sample order of the product and we did note everything. And we notified Amazon about how this reseller was now violating Prop 65, which is an environmental law where you have to provide notice to consumers prior to purchase. And with that, we were able to help our client get that unauthorized seller removed. Again, it wasn't through the regular IP channels, but all of that to show that there's usually a way to get back at bad actors. And lastly, if none of that works, well, you may want to consider litigation. I'm not a big fan of lawsuits and litigation, but in some instances, it does make sense. So keep that as your last resort. And those are the 5 steps for identifying, finding, and enforcing against unauthorized resellers. Now, let me tell you what not to do. Number 1, please don't file infringement reports to Amazon without any evidence, especially if you're going to file them one after another. That's just going to kill your credibility. And after some time, Amazon will start to ignore your IP complaints, or even worse, I've seen this happen, suspend you from Amazon Brand Registry. So don't file IP complaints unless we've actually got a plan and you know what you're doing. Number 2, please don't threaten these resellers, unauthorized resellers, via Amazon's seller channels or chat features. Please don't do that. It's against Amazon's TOS and just ruins your reputation. And the last, don't make any map threats to Amazon. Amazon does not enforce map, and that's one thing they do not care about. Now, let me tell you what Amazon does care about. If you could somehow show Amazon that this violator, this unauthorized reseller is harming Amazon's customers or Amazon itself, then that will force them to act. And I promise you, that's what they care about the most. So that's one of your goals, is to show how your interests and Amazon's interests may be aligned, and how this person is not only harming you, but is also harming Amazon or Amazon's customers. Hopefully this was helpful in helping you understand what unauthorized resellers are and how you can enforce against them. If you have any other questions or need any help, go ahead and feel free to reach out. Our phone number is in the comments below, and our website is also there too. Thank you.